Welcome to drivenmavens.com. My name is Arvin, and today we are going to talk about, or I'm going to show you how we draw wheels. So we're going to start off here with a reference photograph, as you see off here to the left hand side. It's one of the photographs from the DM gallery of taking one of the Grand Prix wheels. So I've already started off by adding a few circles. You got the outer diameter of the tire, then you've got the inner diameter that shows where the actual wheel is, and then the circle between those is really showing the surface transitions of the tire. So if I didn't have that, it'd be having that actually helps me to kind of understand, where the understand the shape of the tire, because the tire is not exactly flat. You're going to have to show that there is some section and some shape to that tire by distinguishing that shape with some surface transition, some value change, and you do that with a value change. So here I am drawing the center spoke. Everything's being roughed in very quickly. Made a quick mistake there, so I'm basically cutting and pasting it to a bottom layer. So when I start off, I start off with my line drawing on one layer, and then my value compositions will go on another layer. So what I'm doing here right now is that when you're looking at a photograph, you want to be able to understand the value spread and the value range of that photograph, or of the subject in the photograph. So here I'm trying to understand, when you squint your eye, you can kind of look where the darkest parts of the picture, the parts of that object, and where are the lighter portions of that object. And if you think of it in that terms, everything else comes a little bit easier, because you're not really thinking of things as a tire per se. You start to look at things as a series of value changes. And all you're doing is just popping out shapes with different values. So I start off with the tire with a lighter color gray, probably around a 5 or 6. So 0 meaning white, 10 meaning black. So it's not going to be completely black. So you start off with a lighter color gray, and then you start to fill in that color throughout the tire. And everything's just roughed in. Okay. So I start to darken as you saw, I start to darken the top portion of the wheel, where the wheel interfaces to the bottom edge of the tire. So what you're going to see there is you're going to catch the shadow side of the tire. Right, because the tire kind of rolls or tucks inside of the wheel as the wheel kind of shingles on top of the tire. So that's why that portion of it is going to be darker. And then I start to add a little bit of detail to the inside of the wheel. You're just indicating detail. You're not trying to get too fancy. All you're doing right now is I'm just looking at that picture, and all I'm doing is just adding value, and that's all I'm doing. I'm popping out that center spoke, adding a little bit darker value at the bottom. So by doing that, you can see that as I do that, you can see that I'm defining the shapes, the inside of that wheel or to that center spoke. So the inside of that wheel is made up of, you basically got a stamped part, and you have some formation, some shapes, and you want to be able to define those shapes. So I just start adding some darker values, somewhere around a 7 or 8. Not exactly black, but they probably could be black. It's always better to go a little bit lighter and then dark them as you go. So here I am capturing the shadow side of the spoke. a cast shadow. Once again, just throwing those details quickly in. And as I'm doing this, I'm looking at that reference photograph and I'm trying to, believe it or not, memorize it a little bit. So if you start to talk to yourself, at the beginning, it's not really necessary for you uh, to think of everything at once, think of all the details. Just try to interpret as much as you can off of that photograph. And as you keep doing these exercises, you'll start to realize that everything starts to make sense. So you'll start to, practice some of your basics and your fundamentals. And as you practice those fundamentals, all the complex shapes start to make a little bit more sense. That's why I always say that it's very important to understand your basic shapes. Understanding how to render even a cube in perspective, and to be able to give it the right light source, or given a light source, how to shade that cube. So once again, I'm just adding more darker values around the tire, and then I start to lighten it up at the top, catching the a little bit of the highlight from the light source, and just start roughing things in. Here I'm establishing the shadow of the ground plane. Shadow the wheel a little bit. Just rough that in. Now, one thing I did not do, and I'm seeing this, and I probably won't go back and fix it. I might fix it maybe a little bit later, but remember, this vehicle has a all these vehicles are actually fairly light, but these things are only filled with air, so you have to go in and see that it's actually, those tires are slightly compressed, right? Actually, I'm wrong. These are not filled with air. These are Grand Prix racing tires. But my point is that rubber compresses under the weight. So what you see at the bottom is that it's slightly compressed, whereas in my painting, it's actually it's not compressed. All right, so I'm adding the tread, just going around the perimeter of the tire. And as you add the tread, you go to a dark value. But remember, as you start to go back in, you're not really done. You actually have to notice that you're going to be capturing a little bit of light from the light source. So the tread, the edge of the tread, is actually going to capture a little bit of light. So then you start adding that highlight. Kind of bouncing around here. Sometimes I start looking at the picture. I want to add a little bit of, add a little bit more darker value through here, pop it out a little bit. I get distracted. Alright, so here I am adding, the highlight. I'm capturing the light from the light source that's coming from the upper right. So it'll capture the edge of the tread. And you start to do that along the perimeter of the tire. So as you can see, that reads really well. It adds some depth to it. It doesn't look very flat. It looks three-dimensional. And the more you're kind of aware of those details, it'll really help your drawings give it that realism that you're looking for. Here I'm adding some more detail around these holes, and as you can see in those holes, inside of the wheel, they've also got some surface formations. So you show those surface formations with a combination of the darker and lighter values around the shape. And reference photographs are just awesome. I mean, the more you use these reference photographs, the better you'll get at building up your own visual vocabulary of what objects look like and how certain things work. And it's a great supplement to the regular exercises that you're going to be doing with, working on basic shapes. And everything just sticks a lot easier. Okay? So there you have it. Just made a little mistake there, but showing you the side-by-side comparison of what this thing looks like. So this concludes part 1, and hope to see you again on part 2 that we'll be showing. So part 2 will be given as a downloadable video. We would like you to definitely join the site, join up for free. There's no cost to anybody, and what we're trying to do is get people to learn. So once again, thanks for watching, and hope to see you here on drivenmavens.com.